welcome back to the AM Club right here on MX24. If you're just joining in, you made the right choice. My name is Akushika Leveni. Yes, for the month of March, if you're joining us for the very first time, you might meet me next month and my name will be Miriam Udwak Menta. But for the month of March, as a patriotic citizen and as a lover of Ghana, we're observing not observing, we're celebrating our culture, our heritage, our identity as Ghanaians, and so we're representing Ghana on the show. So my name is Akushika Leveni, hence Akushika Leveni, okay? All right, so thank you so much for joining in. We're about to get into some really, really important conversations, but before we do that, the stage is set for the landmark 5th edition of the Ghana FinTech Awards, scheduled to take place on Saturday, the 28th of March, 2026 at the Underbridge Annex, not the Underbridge Event Center itself, the Annex building. Now, this year's theme is from awareness to action. So you remember last year we talked about awareness, creating awareness about the cyber security or how cyber secure we should be. Well, this year we're moving from awareness to action, building a cyber secure fintech landscape in Ghana. This year's event promises to be the most significant gathering of the nation's financial technology leaders and innovators. Now, for sponsorship, opportunities, seat reservation, or media accreditation for the 28th March 2026 ceremony, please contact Christina. Her number is 05998 385 or email her at christina@ghanafintechAwards.org. That is christina@ghanafintechAwards.org. And then get those things sorted out. I'll be seeing you there on the 28th of March. Okay, again, I am humbled, okay, to be the host for this year, but I'm not going to be doing it by myself. I'm doing it with my senior, Mr. Ajulu himself. Okay, so it's going to be a wonderful night. It's happening on the March 28th at the Underbridge Annex Event Center. That's in East Legon. It's 5:30 p.m. with a theme from awareness to action, building a cyber-secure fintech landscape in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I do not want you to miss out on. Also remember that if you want seat reservations, sponsorship opportunities, this is a platform that many industry stakeholders are going to be present at, so it's important for you to place your brand there. And so I'm recommending it. Call Christina on 0598 385 685. That's 0598 385 685. Or email at christina@ghanafintechAwards.org. That is christina@ghanafintechAwards.org. Okay? Now, your money deserves the safest home. With Telecel Cash, you are protected every step of the way. No risk, no worries, no long stories, just peace of mind. Dial *110 hash or download the Telecel Play app now for safe, secure transaction. Telecel Cash, the safer choice. And so, yes, it's important for you to know that as well. Okay, keep your money safe. Now, this we've been talking about since morning, and I'm encouraging you to not miss out on this experience. This Ghana month, get ready for a soulful night of live acoustic music as Ara the J, the man of the moment, the man Ghana is talking about. When it comes to music, this season we are talking about Ara the J, but he's spending time with us here on MX Live Unplugged. Now, it's this happening on the 27th of March at 7 p.m. for a special Ghana Month edition at MX Live Unplugged, happening live at the MX24 Studios, number 5 Oleander Street, East Legon, Accra, Ghana. Music lovers can look forward to an intimate performance filled with love songs and smooth acoustic sounds as Ara the J delivers a unique live experience that celebrates Ghanaian music and artistry. Tickets are going for 100 Ghana cedis, cool 100 Ghana cedis. You can secure yours via the link mx24.app/Ara the J. So that's mx24.app/Ara the J Unplugged. Don't miss out these special events. They're happening all right here. It's a special Ghana Month experience. Come through, bring your friends, and enjoy great live music the Unplugged way. Back to the studios. My guests are already seated. They've been sitting patiently because today's conversation is a little sensitive, but also very important, I must say. And so let's join my guests in the studio as we get into that. Joining us via Zoom is security consultant. He is Richard Kumado. And my very good friend Julius Kwame Anthony, he is the government spokesperson, and also Peter Asari Nyanko, certified financial coach and economic diplomat. Good morning, gentlemen. Do we have my friend on Zoom already? Okay, all right. All right, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Miriam.
How are you doing?
Good to
This
be
holiday,
here
I had to
with
pull
you.
you out of your homes.
Yeah.
Instead of resting in your rooms, I've dragged you. But this conversation is very important.
Extremely.
And so it's important that we have this conversation. But we do have Mr. Richard Komado on phone. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Thank you.
Awesome. It's good to have you join us on the show. Now, well, I'm just going to dive right into it, all right? Now, how do global conflicts, again, we have, I mean, the team and I, when we sat down to have this conversation, we did say that whatever it's worth, let's look at this conversation from the human perspective, not political, not whatever angle people want to look at it at. So when I put this up, someone saw it and asked that, what are you going to talk about? I said, why do you ask? He says, because I see Julius on there. I said, you people come and see Julius. Do magic to this conversation. They love you on the show. So how do global conflicts affect Ghana's economy overall? Let's take it from the security angle first, and then we'll come back to you. And so, Mr. Komado, over to you. Let's talk about how the global conflicts we're looking at now affect Ghana's economy overall.
Thank you. All conflicts, whether big or small, irrespective of the persons in the conflict, particularly when it has a global dimension, affects all nations and not just those in close proximity. And it affects them economically, in terms of finance, in terms of health, in terms of survival, and even in terms of safety. And so every bomb you see being thrown and every missile being fired, those that have exploded or those that have not, have serious ramifications and implications on the global space. And to the extent that Ghana plays within the global space, all nations are interconnected now. And that is how dangerous and that is how widely the impact and the negative implications of the conflict is. So it affects us directly. And one way of affecting us is when it comes to our energy supply. The other way is when it comes to our export and import for trade. And the other way is also when it comes to do with our relationship with our partners and international collaborators in many of the things we would have done in the interest of the state. So these are the dimensions we look at it from national security strategic point of view.
Now, if this continues, and I've been following keenly this conversation, especially the Iran-Israel-America conversation, right? And there have been analysis that says that this is going to continue for a bit. As opposed to what the initial speculations were that this will not last. Comments from Mr. Donald Trump has also indicated that this is going to continue for a bit. As if this continues, how bad could it get for us as a country if we're looking at it on the security, from the security point of view?
Number one, it gives us opportunity to also build up our security infrastructure. And one of the things you would do as part of national security dynamic point of view is to make sure that you have enough oil reserves. Number two, you are also mindful of how your airspace will be used by any of your partners and what will be the eventual implications on your state. But if you remember, the last time they fought, when Iran and Israel fought, it lasted for 12 days. This one, it doesn't look like it's going to last for 12 days because we've moved past the 12-day period. It has become a major concern. And I know that there are discussions behind the scenes, and some diplomatic lines have been activated, and there's a whole lot of conversations going on. And like I said earlier, it's not a conflict that affects only Ghana, but it affects everybody. And once it affects somebody that we have a business relationship with or diplomatic relationship with, then invariably it's going to have a negative influence on us. If we are able to put our house in order, the impact to come, but it could be minimized. And I think that is where we are getting to. And I believe that if we put in the right investment and the right technology and the likes of Paul, Temaya Refinery and some other places are going to increase their production, we are going to be pushing for some time. Other than that, the managers of the economy are closely monitoring, and I believe they will take the right decisions at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Komado. Back into the studio. Julius, two commodities are of concern now, gold, oil. And we have seen some, again, we will rely on information that we're seeing online and some of these analyses that are being shared with us, that we currently are going to, if this war continues, we are going to be seeing some, we're going to have to divert where refineries are done, and oil prices are definitely going to go up, looking at what role these countries play in these in making these commodities ready for use in especially here in Ghana. If this continues, I'm going to ask you almost the same question. If this continues economically, what does this look like for us?
Well, it's there is a dilemma because the conversation over the years has been about to what extent we can diversify Ghana's economy so that our reliance on the commodities, the key commodities over the period has been cocoa, has been gold, and for some time now oil as well because of our offshore explorations that we are doing. And if you look at Ghana's growth rate, all the time we try to look at the non-oil growth to see how far other sides of the economy has been doing. But for some time you realize that most of the other sectors have not been doing well. Agriculture at some point grew in the negative in Ghana, which shows that we are not very robust we've not created a very robust economy over the period. Now we are faced with a situation today where more than 60% of Ghana's incomes are coming from our gold. If you look at what we are doing with Gold Board, even with that, there are various questions to be asked. Where the gold is coming from, all those questions people are very interested in. But what is important is at this point, gold is what is anchoring the economy. But you will see also that the determination of the price of gold and all of that is exogenous, is without the control of the Ghanaian Republic, which means that a tank in the price of gold today can lead to catastrophic effects within Ghana here in terms of our revenue projections and all of that. It can disrupt all of those things. What is important is that as a country, you try to put in the needed measures to be able to absorb the shocks. Now, when we came to power, the government of President John Dramani Mahama, one of the key things we recognize is that despite our inability to exercise control over the commodities that generates the greatest revenues for this country, we have control over our fiscal policy, how much government spends from its revenue earnings, how much government takes in terms of credit facility loans, and its effect on even the broader economy. Because if the government goes into the market and takes the larger chunk of the loans that are available, it means the private sector will not be able to have enough to function. The impact. We did all that analysis and concluded that the best thing for this government to do is to exercise fiscal restraint, such that you put in some discipline in terms of how much you spend. That is why we make some very hard choices, some of which this government is largely criticized for over the period. You will see the New Patriotic Party government on the floor of Parliament saying that we are not spending and all of those things, when it's not necessarily the case. We are not spending at the rate at which they are doing. When it comes to major statutory expenditure, when it comes to major welfare expenditure, all of that, we are spending on all those angles. Free SHS is running, the NHIL is running, the district assemblies are getting their common fund. We've been able to do no fee stress. We've been able to cut taxes across board to ensure that we bring some relief to the people of Ghana. A lot of people don't even realize that when government cuts taxes, it's an expenditure measure, because you are cutting on how much you are taking in terms of revenue, so you are giving it back.
Yes.
So you look at it, we are doing all of those things to be able to consolidate. The result of that, inflation today is at 3.4, if I'm not mistaken. That's the rate of inflation. We brought it down from over 28%, bringing some relief to the Ghanaian people. The fuel prices went down at the pump. Yes, people argue that it is not the government of Ghana that has absolute control over what the fuel prices at the pump is. That is true, that we don't have absolute control, but we have a significant control. The reason is that the determination of how much people buy fuel at the pump is a function of the global price of crude, which we are all looking at right now, because it has risen all the way to $106 per barrel today. But you're also looking at your exchange rate factor, because it contributes to how much the people would eventually buy it in cedis. Because the higher the exchange rate, the higher the people are likely to buy it at the pump. You're also looking at your fiscal policy, because we have put some taxes on our, petroleum products. That's also a way by which government controls the price of fuel at the pump. Then you are looking at your regulator. what MPA is doing, where it is setting the price floor, all of that will ultimately determine the price of fuel at the pump. What have we done in this period to make sure that we bring some relief? We have ensured that we reduce the rates at which, what do you call it, we trade our cedi for the dollar, moving all the way from about 14.7, now it is trading at 10.6 if you are looking at the interbank rate. That has also brought some relief at the pump. That is why you would see that even though the global price of crude jumped from a little over $70, going all the way now to $106 per barrel, fuel at the pump only increased marginally. We didn't see the shock we are seeing. But we must acknowledge also, we must be sincere with ourselves, that the higher it rises, the more we'll be seeing that marginal increase. The war, if it prolongs, and with the sort of threats that we are seeing from the American government, recently we hear President Donald Trump say that he'll be going after Iran's energy facilities across the region. If that should persist, we may be dealing with a situation where crude price goes all the way to $200 per barrel. That would have some effect on fuel at the pump. But you see, when we speak of economic resilience, even though fuel is a great contributor to the economy, it even drives inflation, because when fuel prices are up, your transport goes up. Yes. And it means that logistical services will also go up. The corresponding effect ultimately is that prices of general commodities would also go up. Wow. Even though those factors are there, when you manage the other aspects of your economy very well, there's restraints in terms of how much you're spending, all of those things, and you are staying within your budget, you may be able to actually absorb the shock. Because what you want is to reduce as far as possible the impact of the global events on your citizens. And that has always been our argument, that certain domestic policy choices determine the extent of global impact on the economy of Ghana. And I think that the government of Ghana is exercising the needed restraint, the needed policy measures are being deployed to ensure that, all in all, the Ghanaian people, ultimately the household, the individuals, do not bear the extreme brands of this global conflict. Right. That is what we are doing. But I must touch also that the ultimate aim of our government is to ensure that we achieve the diversification that is needed. If you look at some basic commodities like chicken, which we enjoy so much in this country, people have built wealth around the import of these things into this country. And those people resist internal attempts to ensure that we diversify so that there is domestic production of, these commodities to reduce our import dependency. Because if you can take the chicken import out of our import bill, it will be a significant contributor to how we are able to stabilize even our exchange rate. And our balance of payment eventually improves, and it would have a corresponding effect on the economy. Look at what is happening with Burkina Faso, where they are saying that they are blocking the export of tomatoes to Ghana, and we are having
something we're going to discuss later. But I'm glad that you go there, so we can just
so the ultimate aim of government is to ensure that we achieve that diversification. That is why you see it in some of the policy measures we are implementing. Some of those policies have been ridiculed over the period. For example. If you see the circumstances around the world today, you begin to appreciate the idea behind these policies that we are implementing. So eventually we must get to that point where our economy is completely diversified.
I totally
so that
agree with
we don't get the sort of shocks that we got, especially in 2022. See what happened? Because of the extreme borrowing that happened prior to that period. We were doing budget deficits up to the tune of more than 7.5%. Which means that
it's an area we have to move away from completely.
Exactly, which means we're not staying within our means. Now, government is doing lesser, budget deficit. So I think we will get there. We will get there. But I don't see a situation where we have the 2022 situation, that catastrophe where inflation goes to 54%. I don't see it. I don't see it.
And we're still talking on, and I'm going to come back to, let's stay with them, because he has already kickstarted with the recommendations, and so let's stay with that for now. Whilst we're looking at other areas in terms of commodities that could help build this economy or build a more resilient economy, what is happening out there, we have no control over. So again, we stay on what do we do to sustain some of these shocks, or push back on some of these shocks, because really and truly they are coming. I.e., our friends from Burkina Faso, and it's really heartbreaking that we, as a country, who pride ourselves in being the first country that
Independence and all
gained
that.
independence is depending on another relatively smaller country for commodities as basic as tomatoes, and then that will become an economical shock that we have to actually be very devastating, very devastating. And you hear around the world how fertile our lands are. What do we do as all of these things are coming? And it's not just Burkina Faso, it's not just what is happening in America, Iran, or Israel. There are more things happening, or some of these countries that are sustaining some of these bombing and all of that. Dubai, recently I heard that our gold refinery has been channeled, some of it has been channeled to Dubai. So we're going to have issues with that. What do we do?
Great.
Economically?
Right. Yes.
Also consider our city.
Yes.
Is it going to be affected at some point?
Yes. So I'm glad about what you said. You know, Ghana is globally connected in terms of trade. And so whatever happens out there, we pay for it locally. And so it's important for us to put measures in place. And one thing government mostly does is they use taxes. And so they try to adjust taxes to make sure that people don't feel the pressure that is coming from abroad. And two, for us to be able to manage this situation, we should be more focused on cutting down our import and grow locally products. Because, for example, he made mention of chicken. We import chicken. And now that there are wars and conflicts out there, it becomes a bit difficult to get your chicken at the same price. And so that causes inflation. But then if we are growing our own chicken, we are doing our own local production, it makes it easier for us to build our own economy. And so my recommendation would be let's focus more on Ghana-made products. Government should create incentives in such a way that the local manufacturers will be able to produce more.
I guess that's embedded in their 24-hour economy.
Yes, they made mention of that in the 24-hour economy. But then we want it to reflect
really in action. Really.
In the way the local producers are getting access to some of this equipment. For example, machinery. Now they import all this machinery from outside. And once there is conflict, it becomes a bit difficult for you to import those items. Because when there is conflict, supply for those products decreases. And that increases demands. And once demand has increased, it also increased global prices. And that will affect the cost of getting those machineries. As if government can create a system whereby local producers can get access to machinery. Even here, we can put structures in place and manufacture them here in Ghana. And so that the farmer who is producing tomatoes can get access to some machinery to aid his work. And that will prevent them from going out of the country to get those produce. And so let's focus more on local production. And two, let's create more social intervention programs. Let's give subsidies to local producers. Because if we empower them to produce their own products, produce more Ghana-made products, that will also reduce our imports. And that will help us build our own economy. So this will be my true recommendation. Local-made products, government should create that environment to help farmers, to help producers get access to machinery to produce those products. And two, government should subsidize most of the interventions and make sure people are getting access to it. Yeah.
Now, you earlier made some recommendations on how, not recommendations, but told us how the government is working to make sure that we don't go back to what might have happened to this country in previous years. And so when it comes to agriculture, it's key in this as well. What is government planning on doing?
You notice that previously government used to subsidize fertilizer for farmers. Over the past regime, that changed. Subsidies for fertilizers were gone for some time. We were even spraying farms, some of our cash crops, cocoa, cashew, and all of that. That also changed. We are bringing that back to ramp up domestic production. If you remember in 2024 when I was here, I spoke about the farm services centers. President Mahama has cut sword recently for the construction of the farm service centers in the areas around Bono and Ahafo, which is the heart of Ghana's agriculture. When we do that, you realize he made some recommendations about us being able to support the farmers with tools and all of that. That is what the farm service centers are about. Support with tools, with fertilizer, with even, some of the chemicals they may need and all that. And even advisory services. When I was growing up, we used to have agricultural extension officers. So is that not what they used to be called?
Yeah.
In my area, I do see them come to farms. Even, offer advice, consultancy of sorts to farmers and all of those things. Then suddenly they were gone. We don't know where they went to. With the Farm Services Center, we'll be able to bring back these extension services to farmers in the country, because you see, it is embarrassing, really, if we would be honest with ourselves, to have a situation where Burkina Faso, no disregard for that state, but it is almost an arid area, a warmer climate than Ghana. We have a situation where Ghana relies on Burkina Faso for tomatoes for far too long. We need to change something about that. And if something is going to change, then we need to mechanize as well to ensure that younger people are more interested in going into these sectors.
Yeah.
Cocoa production. We have relied on cocoa. When Ghana started out, Ghana used to be more dependent on cocoa than even gold. We didn't even have petroleum, oil at the time. Then we allowed that sector to backslide, over the period. What we want to do is to ensure that there is rehabilitation of the cocoa farms. And the effort we are putting in is to make cocoa farming attractive. If you look at the demographic of our population that is interested in cocoa farming, it's not you and me. It's our parents, which is unfortunate. Because if we are talking about rehabilitation of the farms, so that we want fresher cocoa farms and all of those things, we are talking about fighting the incursion of Galamsey onto our cocoa farms and all of those things. We must also be looking at the human resource aspect of it, which people are now willing to take over that enterprise. Government is actively implementing policies that would encourage young people to now go in there with the interventions we are bringing in to mechanize the procedure. That is the only way we can build resilience over the period. For the immediate term, I believe that there are enough shock absorbers. The inflation where it is today, we have more than 5 months of import cover as we speak. There is enough that may sustain, provided that the war does not prolong beyond the period of 3 months and all of that. If it does, we are going to have challenges. We must be honest with ourselves. And then the other factor is the gold factor, which I earlier said. We as a people must now, be extremely hopeful that gold prices stay relatively up, because gold is anchoring our economy, gold is anchoring our currency as we speak. So all those factors, I think that we would be able to weather the storm. But beyond that is what we must do to diversify. It is our only way out of ensuring that these global challenges do not necessarily have negative effects. As your resource person earlier stated, no matter what economy you are, there will be an impact. The extent of the impact is a function of how domestically or internally robust your economy is, and that is what must be our main focus now.
Awesome. Now, we still have Mr. Komado on phone, but so we're taking messages 055-403-8559, sending your messages to that number. This one just came in. I thought it was really interesting. I'm going to read this one. It says, with rising tensions between Israel and Iran, should Ghana be concerned from a security standpoint, or this is purely a distant geopolitical issue? And I'm going to direct this question to you, Mr. Komado.
I don't see the threat here.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Okay, well, we don't have one. Do you want to take that for me? Okay,
Yeah,
let's take that.
from a security standpoint, nothing immediate for that. Our people can be assured, because Ghana, over the period, has been against the establishment of foreign military bases in our country. And I think most of our neighbors as well have not really accepted that, especially that of the United States of America. If you would see what the Iranians are doing, the Iranians do not have capability to strike mainland United States. So what they are doing is targeting American assets wherever they can find them and wherever is within their range of offensive capability, and they are striking them. Recently, the Iranians launched a missile that ranges over 4,000 kilometers, which puts Africa, the West African sub-region, within range if they develop that capacity fully. But they would not be targeting Ghana. It would be unreasonable for them to be targeting Ghana because we don't house U.S. military bases here.
Yeah, okay.
What they are doing in the Gulf is to target even, energy assets that have American shareholders. That's how far they are going. So if they are American shareholders in a particular corporation, they are targeting those corporations as well in the Middle East. I don't see them sending that to Africa. So I think that from a security standpoint, there is no immediate problem. What we are all praying against is escalation to the point where nuclear weapons come into the face. And we have a President Donald Trump who is threatening to use nuclear weapons, in Iran, which in my view is quite unreasonable, if you asked me. Because you don't threaten to strike energy facilities of a country you have waged war upon. And then when they promise to retaliate in the same measure to target assets where your citizens have, stakes in the region, then you say that theirs would be tantamount to using weapons of mass destruction. If you destroy energy infrastructure in Iran, there will be mass destruction. Babies will die in incubators. People will die in hospitals. It is mass destruction. So I think that is unreasonable. He's saying that, but we pray that the escalation does not get to the point where nuclear weapons come in, because we don't know what would be the responses to the use of nuclear weapons in this war.
Right.
So I don't think there's an immediate threat to the people of Ghana.
Okay. I think we have Mr. Komado. Even though you've done justice to the question, I would like to throw it back to him a little bit. He should just throw a little light on that quickly for us from a security aspect point of view. Okay, so Mr. Komado, do I have you back here?
Thank you.
Awesome, right. Now, so the question was from Kobe. He says, with rising tension between Israel and Iran, should Ghana be concerned from a security standpoint, or is this purely a distant geopolitical issue?
Look, like I said previously, there's a geopolitical angle to it. There's international diplomacy angle to it. And the world is interconnected. So when it happens at one place, it happens to all. Not only those in close proximity, but it affects almost everybody. Now, as to whether they would throw a bomb and it will affect Ghana, we are yet to see. But the nature of the missiles we have today, we are talking about sixth generation missiles, we are talking about hypersonic, we are talking about ballistic missiles and all that. It puts the whole world on edge, and everybody is watching closely. Of course, it's of the truth that where we are and where it is happening is of a distance. Then number two, when it comes to many of these compartments and targets, they select targets carefully and they want to bomb those targets. And so we are a little bit far, but we don't take our eyes off the hook. It might be that some other people may decide to take Ghana on because of our relationship with some other people, or because of our persuasive nature of certain things we do or we love or we don't do. You remember one of the countries was asking Ghana to come and join them in this particular war, which our foreign policy would not allow, and so we declined. Then not long ago, one of the parties involved was saying that we should support their bid. Because of our foreign policy, again, we stopped. And so there are various a little simple and complex nature of it. If you are asking whether are they throwing bombs to Ghana, as it is today, this money as we expect, no. And security management is a continuous process. So we keep our eyes on the war and we make sure our national sovereignty guarantees are achieved, public safety challenges addressed, security assurances are provided, and above all, security intelligence is always made available for decision makers and national policy makers to take a decision in the interest of the state. And that is the way it is done.
All righty. Mr. Komado, thank you so much. Before we
You're
go
welcome.
on a quick break, we're going to go on a break. But before we go, I want to, from your perspective, do you think, let me know how small businesses get affected by some of these things. Of course, now we know that we're safe, Julius. At this point, we know that no bomb is coming this direction. But at least we can feel the economical shock. For small businesses, how does this affect them briefly before we go on a break?
Well, with small businesses, I think they are hit the hardest because there are a lot of counter reactions that take place. Like I said earlier, when conflicts are happening, we pay for it locally because there's shortage of supply. And once there is shortage of supply, demand also increases. And when demand increases, global prices also rises. And so businesses will have to pay more to import those products. And so their cost of importation increases. And mostly what they do is they transfer that to the final consumer. And so if you're a small businesses, someone who is doing a retailing, and you are buying from a wholesaler, you may pay more for your product, and that will affect you. And two, there's also a delay in shipping because of the uncertainties. And so people want to be sure if we have to move our conception. And that can also affect small businesses who have already placed in an order and all that. And so there's a huge cost that the small businesses and even consumers like ourselves, we bear when some of these conflicts are happening globally. Yeah.
Well, if you're just joining in, you made the right choice, but we've been having great conversations about the conflict happening globally, how it affects the economy of this country, Ghana. So far, I mean, I've heard people say that they're feeling very bad for this government because they've been doing so well so far, but these shocks are ones that are unforeseen. We have no control whatsoever over such situations. But based off from the conversation we've had so far, Julius has assured us that there has been decisions that are taking that are going to really, really help. If not make sure that we maintain the same position, which is almost impossible, we are able to sustain these shocks well. We're going for a quick commercial break. When we come back, the conversation continues right here on the AM Club. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the AM Club Radio on MX24. My name is Akushi Kalebeni, and thank you so much for joining us. We're back here. We're still talking the conflict happening globally, how it affects the country's economy, and how we could potentially just stay safe during this period. And I have with me Julius Anthony. Mr. Nyako is also here, and Mr. Commodore is online with us. Good morning once again. Now, finally, before we wrap up this entire conversation, for foreign investors, this is a big deal for me because some of the very the thriving sectors that we have in here are largely because we have foreign investors in it. How do foreign investors respond to these global crises affecting Ghana's economy? Do you want to take that or you want to take that? You want to say that?
Well, there are multiple ways to look at it. In crisis, there's also opportunity. You look at the Gulf countries. Over the period, what has been their preoccupation? It has been the development of recreation, what do you call it, entertainment, hospitality, all of that. That is what they were developing their hub to be. And if people get up from almost every part of the world, they are running to those Gulf countries. People want to go to Dubai, people want to go to Saudi Arabia, people want to go to Kuwait, Qatar, all of that for fun, But the war America waged, the unfortunate thing is that it has disrupted that. Nobody finds the Gulf countries as a safe haven anymore. Millionaires were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get out of that place. What it implies is that different parts of the world would become destinations for tourism, which means that in all this chaos, there is an opportunity to tap into if we sit down and re-strategize. Because Africa, being a place, and by extension Ghana, where we would rarely wage any wars, on anybody, and there is a very less likelihood that there will be a return of same if we wage none, because we pose less threats to anybody. Then those are avenues that we may be looking at, that there are opportunities for investment if we position ourselves very well for them. So it's not all gloomy because there is chaos. Sometimes chaos can be a ladder And if we position ourselves well, we can climb it. That's how I see it.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Komodo, your final take on this conversation, but I would want you to answer. I would want you to speak to how government and citizens can take, safe measures to stay safe. Let me just put it that way during this global instability.
No, I think government communication is key. Government explaining what the issues are to the citizens will make them carry them along. When governments make things, people enjoy. When there are issues of difficulty, government must explain to the people. It's also part of security management that when people are educated and they are made aware, and some level of agitations do not take place. If there's a vacuum in communication, then you can have thoroughbreds feeding in with all manner of issues, disinformation, misinformation that can create national instability. So we will urge government to always communicate to the people on a timely basis. The foreign ministry, the finance ministry, the energy ministry, the MPA, and trade and industry, agriculture, all of them should speak to the nation. And once they do that, we'll be fine. You remember the recent case we have with Burkina Faso, where they said tomatoes are not going to come. If you start the argument, it has issues to do with they being nationalizing their tomato production. Are we also doing the same thing? We spoke about cocoa that will add value to 50%. All nations are trying to add value to what they do. It is time for national strategic policy, and it's time for proper and effective communication. And we'll carry everybody along, and that will be the way forward.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. I lost him. Okay, this was supposed to be his last question, but then there was a little follow-up question. I think this will be a couple of weeks ago when the Foreign Affairs Minister talked about how Ghana was a landing site for the moment that happened in Nigeria on the 25th of December. And what that kind of communication meant. I sat here and said that there was no need for something like that, because for people it would begin to enlighten people about what really happened. This was supposed to be a private, what do you guys call it, classified information.
I don't think that the minister precisely said what you said, that Ghana was a landing site for anything. What the minister said is that the situation in the Gulf has vindicated Ghana's position not to host any, military bases of any foreign country.
Right.
And that Ghana at all times is open to security partnership with the rest of the world. And that recently, Ghana has partnered the United States and Nigeria. That's what he said. So it's only when countries open themselves up to some form of partnership with Ghana, but to host foreign military bases in this country,
but these partnerships could be threatening as well.
No, but countries always have military arrangements. Ghana today has, security arrangement. Ghana today has security arrangements with Britain, with France, with the United States, all over.
I'm just saying that these are classified information that if other people
it's not true that it is classified information that Ghana has military partnership with the United States. It goes to Parliament.
No, I'm saying
Nothing that goes to Parliament
it and making it look as though there was this partnership too, because you know how these.
Let me tell you, there is a certain targeting of Okudzeto Ablakwa, where even if he goes and signs a visa waiver agreement, people are angry.
Oh no, I'm saying this on a personal level.
No, I'm not saying it is about you.
Yeah.
But the sort of uproar that came because the Minister for Foreign Affairs said that Ghana has military partnerships with the United States and will not harbor foreign military bases, and is only welcome. And that recently Ghana has partnered with the United States and Nigeria in maintaining security. The sort of uproar that came with it is not commensurate with how people want us to believe that statement is threatening.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And military corporations are not always secrets. Who doesn't know that Ghana has military cooperation with the United States? Who doesn't know Ghana has military cooperation with Britain? Who doesn't know we have military cooperation with France? The French literally come here and join us in jungle exercises. Would anybody who has issues with the French begin to target Ghana simply because they've seen French military attachés with the Ghana Armed Forces in jungle exercises? As we speak, France is in confrontations with Burkina Faso and some of their former colonies. Who is saying that there will be military confrontations against Ghana because of our partnership with France. So what I'm trying to bring your attention to is that the sort of uproar that came with that statement is not because of the facts of what the minister is saying. It's because of him, who he is. And the targeting of our black wives.
Today we're not getting into it. I'll bring you back on Monday so we'll talk about this.
Yeah,
Sure,
so
no
to touch on
problem at
that
all.
briefly,
Yes,
I think
please.
military cooperation is allowed.
Yes.
In diplomacy, it's okay for a country to sign a military cooperation with other countries. But then what people have an issue with is our neighboring country was just bombed, had an incident. And so if we say Ghana had a partnership with the US,
People don't
No,
understand.
then you don't. Then you don't understand what happened.
So Julius, what I'm
Yes.
saying is
So
that for
that-
the layman,
Yes.
this was what was happening.
You don't get it.
This was what was happening.
The spokesperson
Yes.
of Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yes.
People were making diplomatic arguments
Yes.
that the Nigerians never publicly said that
Yes.
they cooperated with the United States to do
Yes.
that,
Okay.
which is a lie. Because the spokesperson of Bola Ahmed
They
Tinubu
confirmed that there was
was
a
in Al
collaboration.
Jazeera,
Yes.
a public Al Jazeera
Yes.
platform, where he did say that they invited the Americans.
Or they had a partnership.
No, he literally said they invited the Americans to conduct the strike.
Okay.
yes.
So how do you turn around from that and say that from a diplomatic standpoint, Ghana has no business mentioning something Nigeria has not mentioned? The Nigerians literally sat on global platforms and said they invited the Americans.
But even with Bola's comments, it was because he was drilled into it. I
don't think
I
it,
felt like
no,
he was
but
drilled
if
into
he
saying
is
things
he is
that
the
he was not
spokesperson
supposed
for
to
the
say.
president of the Federal Republic of
Indeed,
Nigeria.
he is.
If he says on a global stage that they have had a cooperation with the United States to conduct that activity, how do you then turn around and say that it is the foreign minister of Ghana who is announcing it on their behalf? How do you, in good faith,
but
make
Julius,
such a
I think we're done with this
proposition?
conversation, really. But if I watched that interview thoroughly, and I even felt at some point that was he supposed to say this? If it's not for the drilling that happened on the show, was he supposed to divulge this information this way? Because you were right when you said that initially it was almost as if America took this decision on their own and without Nigerian government. And so again, that was a good way to clear that air.
But even before the spokesperson of the Nigerian president appeared on Al Jazeera,
Yes.
the Nigerian government had publicly announced that
Yes.
they are cooperating with the US to do that.
Right.
And because a certain image was being created as if out of the blue, the United States on Christmas Day was bombed.
Yes.
That's not the case. That's
Anyway,
not the case.
it's still on the PR conversation. Donald Trump made it look that way, like he did it
Of
on his own.
course.
Like he did it on his own. Please, finally with you, Mr. Nyanko. Julius was saying earlier that there are areas that will benefit from, maybe you don't want to use benefits, right? But that could thrive even in these very difficult times. He mentioned the tourism sector. Which areas, again, which industries or which sectors can actually continuously thrive even though there's this instability in the sub-region?
Yes, so I think the manufacturing industry,
Okay.
if government can provide the needed incentives, the tools, we can boost our agricultural sector. So that's something we need to look at and make sure we take advantage of these global uncertainties and structure our agri sector.
Okay.
We can also look at the retail center. Yes, people, because of inflation, consumers may not want to spend more. But then if structures can be put in place for incentives to be given out, to help producers, to help people who are into retail businesses, for them to reduce their prices, I think that will also benefit the average Ghanaian. So these are some of the things I think government should put in place.
Awesome.
And then businesses should also work together with government to make sure we don't suffer for what is happening out there.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this morning. This has been a very fruitful conversation. I've enjoyed it thoroughly and I've been enlightened. And so you see, when they tell you to sit with brilliant men, they are not insulting you, okay? I've had a full day because I have learned from security to economy to every aspect and facet of this conversation. So we keep learning and growing on this platform, and I want you to continuously connect with us via our social media platforms. This is MX24GH on all social media platforms. But I want to say thank you to Richard Commodore. He's a security consultant. He joined us via the phone. And Julius Kwame Anthony, government spokesperson. And Peter Asari Nyako, certified financial coach and economic diplomat. Thank you so much once again. My name is Akushi Bene. Again, connect with us on all social media platforms. It is MX24GH. Also, I'm here from Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Come as we learn and grow together. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.